Have you ever saved someone's life? How did it happen? I had a good friend who was going through some very stressful times in his life. He began experiencing symptoms of severe anxiety, tension, headaches, feelings of dizziness, and lethargy. He went to the doctors, who prescribed him benzos. He wasn't doing good, and I went over several times to his house and he seemed like he was losing it. I would call him periodically to check in from time to time to see how he was doing and try to calm him. One day I had felt like I had a need to call him right then and there. I called him and he answered crying. I asked how he was doing and he said not good. I went and picked him up. Noticed an empty fifth of whiskey on his dresser. He had always been a heavy drinker, and at that moment I realized that benzos and alcohol don't mix. I took him to the and he was admitted. He has a BAC of 36, indicating he was an alcoholic or he would be dead. From there we convinced him to take his SSRIs and go to rehab. On my way to drop him off at rehab he told me, "Hey man, you're a great friend. I just want you to know that if you hadn't showed up today, I was going to kill myself." That hit me hard. I don't know if this really fits. I needed a kidney. My cousin volunteered. During their testing of her they found a small mass they thought was just fat. It turned out to be cancer. Most kidney cancer apparently is not caught until it's too late, because your other kidney takes on the work and you don't get symptoms. She was able to get it all removed and is now cancer free. Didn't even need chemo. Just surgery. Anyway, she claims I saved her life. I claim she saved her own by being willing to donate. Friend overdosed on heroin. I administered CPR before the paramedics arrived. They did not have to administer Narcan when they arrived as she was breathing when they arrived. I'm a doctor. Even then I can count the number of times I can say I've saved someone's life on one hand with fingers left over. I was working at an athletics event. After a long distance running event that was open entry, a person collapsed and stopped breathing. I worked with my team to stabilize them and transfer them to hospital. They needed support for their airway to keep breathing. Had they not had it, they would have asphyxiated and died. I met them with their spouse and 8-year child a few months later, actually on this day a few years ago. That was the biggest reward for me. The best feeling was in the middle of a neighborhood pool and watched a toddler at the side of the pool, 10-foot end, take his floats off and then jump in the water. He curled up like a ball and began to sink quickly. I was able to reach him before he reached the bottom. He was scared but screaming. The babysitter was on her phone. One day in college, I was on my way to grab dinner with some friends and ran into another friend in the parking lot. I invited him to come with me and join us, and we proceeded to have a totally unremarkable dinner in the cafe. Years later, post-graduation, we were hanging out one night getting a bit drunk and stoned, and he confessed to me that he was on his way to kill himself that night when I ran into him. Was eating dinner with my kid. I think she was maybe 4 at the time. She started choking. I quickly shot my hand into her abdomen up, and in mimicking a hemorrhage, whatever it was she was eating came flying out of her mouth. Once she was good, the stress got me, and I went and cried in the bathroom for a couple minutes. I worked in a med lab. My job was to go over the doctor's orders and make sure everything was correct. They missed a potassium test, so I ran and got that order. Turned out to be lethally high. Tech called the doctor at 2 in the morning. Doc got the patient to the hospital single-handedly, twice. Once on baby with RSV. The pulse ox kept going off. My coworker just went in and shut it off. It went off again. I actually looked at baby in mom's arms, and he had that hold him not breathing look. Snatched him out of mom's arms and started mouth to mouth on the crib until the code team could get there. No ambu bag because that hospital had decided it was too expensive to put one of each size at the bedside. My gift RSV a week later. Second time was a guy who odd in the bathroom at Walmart. I just kept his airway open and best on his chest when he would quit breathing. Quite a few others as part of a team. Especially when I was probably about 12 or 13, I saved my 4-year brother's life. We were in Oregon for spring break as a family and were watching the ocean waves on the beach. Suddenly an enormous rogue wave came out of nowhere and it pushed us all the way up the beach and against the cliffs. As the water rushed out, I saw my brother tumbling in the surge, so I lunged and grabbed him with one arm and held on for dear life to a big rock with the other. My shoes, jacket and wallet along with other family members' belongings were all swept out to sea, but I still have a brother. My dad and I were on vacation in Paris a couple years ago, walking by the river. There weren't that many people around, jet lag. We were up early, and this girl jogged by us with her dog off leash. A couple of ducks saw the dog coming about 30 feet ahead of us and went into the water. Dog goes in after ducks. Girl goes in after dog. Because it was the Seine in the middle of Paris and the banks are all paved down, apparently steep. Neither of them could get up on their own right. We pulled them both out, one after the other, and then this husky the size of a dire wolf had the nerve to shake off all over us. Probably they would have figured it out if we hadn't been there, or someone else would have heard the yelling in time to help them. Still, it's a fun story. Leash your dogs, kids. When I was in middle school, my dad took me to one of his friend's barbecues. His friend had a young son that I think was 4 or 5 at the time. Everyone had been swimming in the pool and went in the yard to go eat. No one saw the little kid run back to the pool except for me. Before I could say anything, he jumped in without his swimmies. I ran as fast as I could to him as he thrashed in the water, and I pulled him out. His parents were absolutely shocked and terrified. They didn't think he would do anything like that. Thankfully he ended up being fine, and it scared him out of doing it again. Always watch your kids if you have a pool. Even if you think they know better, they probably don't. I have performed the abdominal thrust, wrongly called Heimlich, on a girl at a juvenile detention facility I used to work at. I also have performed it on my wife probably 5 to 7 times. She has medical issues that sometimes causes her to choke. So we have learned how to specifically cook several meals and identify which ones that she refuses to eat when I'm not home with her. A few times. I've worked in healthcare for about 20 years, so there's been some successful resuscitations. Things like that. Stopped at a wreck and broke the window to reach the driver and apply pressure to a bad leg wound until paramedics took over. Prevented a bad drug interaction that could have been nasty. Performed Heimlich maneuver on a guy at a Japanese restaurant. The workers were too short to do it effectively, but I'm 6'3", so I got it dislodged. When you are doing my kind of work, it just happens with a fair amount of regularity. Wasn't much, really. I work at a convenience store / truck stop. A trucker came in one night complaining of chest pains, left arm aching, shortness of breath. Asked if I could call 911. I did, and the dispatcher talked me through how to keep this man from having a heart attack. I followed the directions to the letter, and minutes later, EMTs arrived to provide assistance. The guy came back 3 days later and thanked us profusely because of my and my coworkers' fast action. We literally saved his life. A fun side note about this story, our company has like an employee spotlight type thing where customers can either write to the company or store management can forward things on to upper management. Some stories get featured at the year-end meetings. I asked my store leader if this would get forwarded on, not wanting to toot my own horn, but thinking that the other coworker and I deserved some sort of recognition for our actions. His reply, yeah, they'd hear about it if I send it to them. And that was it. Dude really cheesed me off. So glad I'll be leaving soon. When I worked in the restaurant industry, I had to give the Heimlich more than I can count. People would repeatedly thank me and sometimes say you saved my life. But I always felt like all I did was help them throw up their giant steak bite in public. I guess it is all about perception. Former lifeguard. You dumb kids drown. I save you. My favorite is the one girl who had a conversation with me that she didn't know how to swim but wanted to jump off the diving board anyway. I said no. Get off the diving board. She jumped. I saved her life. You're welcome, dumb girl, wherever you are. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.